London is the place that I grew up and that I identify as my city. I see the place as this pulsating, vast grey magnet that draws so many people and cultures in. I wanted to create a piece about London as an icon, and much of London's atmosphere and history comes from it being in some way separate from the rest of the country. And so creating it into an island meant that it was more of an icon with its fictitious coastline and in some way a place in itself.
He has a lot of personal information, autobiographical information on the map, which, normally speaking, you wouldn't get, though you could argue that any map, to an extent, tells you something about the person who made it.
A lot of the references are about personal experiences in certain places. In Trent Park here, when we were growing up, big group of friends, we used to make fires and spend all night here really. The tree line that you see on the left would be the line of the fictitious coastline of London on the map. And also down there is the manor house of old Middlesex University that was a POW camp in the Second World War, and Charlie Chaplin and Churchill were famous for visiting there.
The island is a conventional map in that it shows the different parts of London in more or less accurate relationship to one another. It's underlying it all, there's an accurate street plan. More than that, it gives information about London which can best be represented graphically.
The interest in signs and symbols has grown up in my work in the last decade of looking at landscapes and representations of real experiences onto a perceived landscape. And maps have been something that I've always been fascinated in looking at.
I especially like Stephen Walter's map of London because I feel it does very similar things to town plans which have been produced for the last 1,000 years. It's a map which is made up almost entirely of symbols with a key to direct us to what the symbols mean. It's basically a vast array of information in symbolic form.
John Roke's historical maps of London and other 18th century examples were a great influence into the appearance of the map. Mine goes from that conservative edge into a spoof of one of those historical maps of old, and highlights in certain areas some of the urban myths and the facts and fictions and the secrets and histories of certain places. This is my London studio in Fish Island in the Hackney Wick area, and this is where I made the map. In front of here we have the original drawing. From the start to the final mark, it took me about a year and a half. That included a great deal of research, internet-based, and books, etc. And from the initial photograph of a map of London and a projection, I traced the outlines of all the main roads, the built-up areas and the green spaces. So I would often start with a couple of processes of top left to bottom right, filling in the details of some of the centres of all the hamlets of London, and then start to fill in all the words. And then from then, as and when the information came to me, I travelled around the different areas of the map, filling in the detail.
The British Library purchased this map and it's been a great addition to the collection. It shows London in a slightly different way to many usual maps. In addition to the roads and the key buildings and places of interest, it also shows the underbelly of London, if you will. Key events that have happened there, key events that have occurred and happened to the mapmaker himself. And in many ways it's doing the same thing as medieval world maps, which show what actually happened in a place as well as what the place looks like.
It notes some of the famous sites of history, such as Newgate Prison, where the convicted were marched off to be hung at the three-legged Tyburn tree, which is now Speaker's Corner. At some time in history, when an earthquake occurred in London, fish were reported to be jumping out of the Thames. Also, it notes Magna Carta Island in Runnymede, which is one of the islands shown on the map. We're standing outside the Charles Lamb pub in Islington, where one of the prints of the island is framed and hung. And here, in 2007, myself and Hobby Lemon, who runs the pub and also Tag Fine Arts, we decided to go ahead with the project of turning my original London drawing into an exhibition of prints.
What I most enjoy about the map is it's the way in which it subverts the language of photography. Everybody knows that a map uses signs. Everybody knows that a map has words. With Stephen Walter, the signs he uses might strike many people as being bizarre. They're certainly tremendously subjective. And the words, too, are words which you wouldn't find on any official map. And I think this actually adds to the value.
Examples of the information he shows are where dangerous dogs are in London and where to avoid them, where to get a good drink and where to have a nice view as you're having that drink, places to avoid at a certain time of night. In a way, this map is, I suppose, I think of it as a tourist map, but it's a tourist map for the Londoner, for the insider.
The reactions to the map have been very positive, and I feel that people also have a bit of ownership and interest personally about the things that are referenced. A lot of the notes on the map are both caustic and humorous, you know, serious and flippant, because the map and its references and really what it's about are about a shared history, and the piece acts as a mirror onto its viewer.
An earlier map by MacDonald Gill of 1920 showing London has similarly quite a few colloquial sayings which are virtually incomprehensible to us today, and one feels that Stephen Walter's map will probably be the same in 50 years. However, it will still be probably one of the most valuable documents we have of exactly how London was and what it was like in 2009.